Tyre changing. Now, if you've not got the option of taking your wheel to a puncture repair shop and getting them to change the inner tube for you, you're gonna have to sort it out yourself. Now, tyre changing, tyre repair, it's viewed kind of as a bit of a dark art. People either love it or hate it, but there's a few simple principles involved that if you understand them, it makes the whole situation much, much easier. The underlying rule for me with tyre changing is that you should never need brute strength to do it. If you're having to swing on tyre levers and fight with it, something's going wrong. Stop, consider these basic principles again, and then restart in a calm manner. Now, to understand how this tyre is going to come off of this rim, we need to understand how the system works. Behind here is a bead on the tyre which sits against this rim. The internal diameter of that bead is smaller than the rim. So how are we going to get the small thing off over the top of the big thing? By using the well. If you look in the center of the rim here, we have a lowered section of rim. So what we do is we offset the tyre to one side. So if this is the rim, this is the tyre, we drop the bead of the tyre into the well, offset the whole thing to one side. So if this side of the tyre is in the well, this side of the tyre can now come out over the top of the rim. That's the basic principles of tyre changing. Get that right, and it should be simple. Right, first job is to make sure the tyre is fully deflated. So we're going to use our fingernail inside the valve here and let the remainder of the air out. Once the air's out, we need to loosen the lock nut on the valve, which will let the inner tube move inside the tyre. The next big job is to unseat the tyre from the rim. When you inflate a tyre, that bead we talked about earlier pops up onto the rim surface and kind of holds there, not quite in an airtight seal on a tube tyre, but close enough. If we want to get this tyre off, we need to unseat that bead, and we need to use a reasonable amount of force to do so. Now, doing it with your feet, doing it with your boots it's not impossible, but it's not much fun. However, if you're riding with a group of friends, a motorcycle side stand is one of the best ways to do this. We're going to put the tyre on the floor and try and put it on top of something that's going to prevent damage to the hub or the disc. Ideally, use a motorcycle jacket. In fact, ideally use someone else's motorcycle jacket. Just get them to take their phone out of the pocket first, or a bit of cardboard, a floor mat from a passing truck, anything you can just to give a little bit of protection. With the wheel securely on the floor, we're going to use the side stand of the bike, and that pressure of the side stand is going to push down right next to the rim and pop the bead of the tyre off that edge of the rim. Repeat this in a couple of places around the circumference of the tyre, flip it over and do the same on the other side. Now the tyre is ready for removal. We lay the wheel back flat on the floor, and using our knees on the side closest to us, we're going to push the tyre down so that the bead sits in the well of the rim. With the bead in the well on the closest side of the tyre to us, we work as far away as possible, putting in one tyre lever at a time. When you insert a tyre lever in, there's always a chance that you're going to damage the inner tube. So put the tyre lever in very carefully and never go too far in. Pull the lever towards you, one at a time, and work your way around the tyre until the whole of that bead is over the rim. Two key rules here. One, small bites. Don't try and take half the tyre in each go. I tend to work in 2 or 3 inches at most between the tyre levers, and take your time. Patience is absolutely key here. Secondly, particularly if you've got black painted rims or black anodized rims, use a rim protector to avoid damaging that surface. Rim protectors are easy to come by, they're cheap plastic things, but they do the same job as a bit of old garden hose around the side of the rim. It's up to you whether you want the fancy kit or to improvise with home-built tools. Once the side of the bead is off all the way around the tyre, we can then look to get the inner tube out. Undo the valve nut completely, put your hand inside the tyre and pull the inner tube out of the tyre. Before we put a new inner tube in this, we're going to want to make sure that whatever caused the puncture is gone. So we're going to run our hand around the inside of the tyre surface really gently, because if it's something sharp, we don't want to cut our fingers. A visual inspection is also really important. Once you've identified whatever caused the puncture, bearing in mind it could just be a sharp stone on the trail and might not be stuck in the tyre, we can look to either repair the tube or put a new inner tube in. For speed and ease of use, I always carry a spare inner tube for my bike so that I don't have to mess around with rubber repairs on the side of the trail. With the replacement tube, we're going to put a little bit of air in it to start with, so it's just squishy enough that you can collapse it completely, but actually holds the shape of a tyre. Pop the valve into the rim first, then work the inner tube into the tyre all the way around. When we're reseating the tyre, sometimes a little bit of water as lubricant really does help and gives us less chance of damaging the rim or the inner tube. Putting the tyre back on, same principles as taking it off. We need the side closest to us into the well, and then we're going to work methodically around the tyre, making sure that the opposite side to the tyre lever is always tucked nicely in the well. Use your knees to help hold the tyre down where you want it. Same rule again, small bites with the levers, 1 to 2 inches between levers, And when I pull the lever up to lever the tyre in place, I never go past vertical. This avoids the risk of pinching the inner tube against the wheel itself. With one tyre lever holding the tyre still, the second tyre lever we can work up and down to the vertical position, shifting the lever an inch or half an inch to the side each time. Further around the tyre you go, the more attention you're going to have to pay to make sure the bead is in the well and that you're using small bites with the levers. This is the best bit, the last section of the tyre just as it pops in. Please don't be tempted to rush at this point. Take your time, work it round, and get that satisfying pop as the bead pops fully onto the rim. Next, we've got to deal with inflation. To pump the tyre up, you can use a hand pump or you can use a 12-volt electric pump that runs off the motorcycle battery. I have a simple 12-volt pump here and it's compact and fits in my tail pack. If you're going to use the battery of the motorcycle to run a compressor, make sure the engine is running so that battery is being charged. Inflate the tyre, and what we're looking for is to see this bead section of the tyre seat nicely against the rim, evenly all the way around. Again, a drop of water on the tyre will help it seat easily. If you're finding it's taking an excessive amount of pressure to get the tyre to seat on the bead, release the air from the tyre, re-lubricate with water and start again. Sometimes you have to do this 2 or 3 times, depending on the tyre and rim combination. Once you've got the bead pop back on, set your tyre pressure to the manufacturer's recommended amount, wheel back in the bike, and you're good to go. You are now an official tyre changing hero.